What if the life you thought was perfect wasn't? What if behind the glittering gowns, the red carpets, the global adoration, there was a secret so shocking that it could unravel a fairy tale in an instant? Imagine this. The world watches as Meghan Markle, the Duchess who captured hearts and headlines, is suddenly exposed, not for a scandal in a tabloid sense, but for a truth that nobody saw coming. A truth that could shatter a marriage, humiliate a royal family, and leave Prince Harry questioning every moment he believed in love. That truth, according to explosive revelations from the new Tom Bower expose, is that Meghan Markle, yes, the Duchess herself, was allegedly involved with Ty Warner, billionaire and creator of Beanie Babies fame, in a relationship that some are calling Sugar Baby meets Hollywood elite. And if that isn't enough, whispers of Prince Harry walking into divorce talks have started circulating faster than the tabloids can catch up. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. For years, the world has watched Meghan and Harry navigate the treacherous waters of royal life. Their love story was sold as a modern fairy tale, a prince leaving his destiny to follow love, an actress stepping into a life of privilege and scrutiny, and together, forging a new chapter for the monarchy. But fairy tales rarely survive exposure to reality, and this one, it seems, is teetering on the edge of collapse. What could possibly have led to such a shocking revelation? How did the private lives of one of the world's most famous couples become fodder for a dramatic expose? And more importantly, what does this mean for the future of the British monarchy and the very image of Harry and Meghan? In the first 5 seconds of this story, you might feel disbelief. You might feel anger. Or maybe, just maybe, you'll be riveted by curiosity. Because what Tom Bower's investigation reveals isn't the kind of tabloid gossip that passes with a shrug. This is a story about power, wealth, deception, and a marriage that may be unraveling right before our eyes. It's a story that asks, how much of what we see in public is truly real, and how much is meticulously constructed illusion? Picture the scene, an exclusive mansion in Beverly Hills, the kind of estate that celebrities dream of, where privacy is bought with walls and security. Within its halls, the life of Meghan Markle might have been far more complicated than we ever imagined. Ty Warner, a man whose fortune is measured in billions, allegedly intertwined with Meghan in ways that challenge the public narrative of love and loyalty. Gifts, lavish dinners, whispered meetings, details that Bower meticulously uncovers. And yet, the world only saw the polished image. Meghan, the Duchess, standing beside Prince Harry, smiling for the cameras, seemingly untouchable. How could one reconcile the public perception with what is now being exposed behind the scenes? And then there is Harry. Prince Harry, once the carefree royal who charmed the world with his rebellious streak, now faces an unimaginable dilemma. Walking into divorce proceedings is not simply a legal act. It is a deeply personal reckoning. Imagine the emotional toll, betrayal, heartbreak, the crushing weight of public scrutiny. Every move he makes is dissected by millions. And yet, in the quiet of his private life, he must grapple with questions no royal should ever have to answer. Did he ever truly know his wife? Were the moments of intimacy and partnership built on reality or carefully constructed illusion? It is easy to underestimate the human cost of such revelations when the world is quick to judge from afar. But consider this. Meghan, a woman who has battled the media for years, now finds herself exposed in a way that could redefine her legacy. And Harry, a prince whose life has always been under the microscope, may be facing a personal and public collapse simultaneously. Every decision, every emotion, every secret, it now comes under relentless scrutiny. Tom Bower's expose does not merely hint at these scandals. It provides a mosaic of evidence, anecdotes, and insider testimony that paints a vivid picture of a life far removed from the fairy tale narrative. And yet, there are contradictions that make the story even more compelling. Public appearances suggest unity and devotion, yet behind closed doors, sources claim tension, secrecy, and a power imbalance that was never visible to the camera. How does one navigate a life where every action is analyzed and every secret threatens to explode into public consciousness? What does this mean for the millions who have followed Meghan and Harry's journey? For fans who believed in the modern, progressive fairy tale of the Sussexes, These revelations feel like betrayal. But even skeptics must pause. The depth of the investigation, the detail, and the timing of the leak suggest that this is more than mere rumor. It is a calculated unveiling of a truth that, until now, remained carefully hidden. The emotional stakes cannot be overstated. Imagine being in Harry's position, a lifetime of privilege and expectation, suddenly confronted with revelations that cast your closest partner in a completely different light. The trust, the love, the shared vision of life together, all called into question. And for Meghan, the stakes are equally high. Public condemnation, scrutiny from the palace, and a global audience ready to dissect every reaction, every statement, every tear. How do you defend yourself when the narrative seems stacked against you? Yet, it is not merely personal scandal that makes this story so compelling. It is the interplay of power, wealth, and influence. Ty Warner is not just a billionaire. He is a man whose life and dealings have intersected with celebrities and royalty alike. Allegations of financial entanglements, hidden meetings, and secret exchanges raise questions about the lines between personal relationships and public persona. How does one negotiate a world where money and love are so dangerously intertwined? And as the revelations unfold, the timing could not be more explosive. Divorce rumors are intensifying, legal battles loom, and the monarchy faces the kind of internal scrutiny it rarely experiences. Every public statement, every media leak, every subtle gesture becomes a signal to the world. For Meghan and Harry, navigating this minefield is not just about personal survival. It is about legacy, reputation, and the future of their family. By now, you might be asking yourself, how did it come to this? How did a couple who seemed so united, so committed, find themselves at the center of such a storm? And what will happen next? The answer lies in a combination of hidden histories, strategic revelations, and the relentless pursuit of truth by investigative journalists who refuse to let secrets remain buried. But the story does not end here. As shocking as the allegations are, Meghan's alleged sugar baby connection, the billion-dollar entanglement, Harry's private turmoil, they are only the beginning. The fallout is ongoing, and the consequences are far-reaching. Every revelation creates a ripple, affecting not only the individuals involved, but also the monarchy, the media, and the millions who have invested emotionally in this royal saga. In the coming chapters, we will explore every angle. The explosive details of Meghan's alleged past, Harry's emotional journey as he confronts betrayal, the billionaire connection that has captivated the public imagination, and the legal and personal ramifications that could redefine the future of the Sussexes. We will examine insider perspectives, dissect public reactions, and reveal the moments that have gone unnoticed until now. Moments that, when put together, create a narrative far more shocking than any headline could capture. But what Tom Bower revealed next, what nobody anticipated, will challenge everything we thought we knew. It is a revelation that could redefine the public perception of Meghan Markle, reshape Harry's personal life, and send shockwaves through the royal family. And as you sit and process this, you may find yourself asking, is this a story about love and betrayal, power and money, or something far more intricate, far more insidious? The truth is about to come out, and what you are about to see is not just another royal scandal. This is a tale of secrets, power, and choices that will reverberate across the world. But before we dive into the explosive chapters ahead, consider this. How much of what you've believed about Meghan and Harry has been carefully curated for public consumption? How many moments of laughter, affection, or loyalty were real? And how many were part of a story designed to distract, to charm, and to mislead? And so, as we begin this journey, one question remains. What happens when the truth finally emerges? When the mask falls and the secrets are laid bare, who will survive, who will be destroyed, and who will rewrite their legacy? But what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. What if everything you believed about Meghan Markle and Prince Harry was just the surface of a much darker story? A story of carefully curated appearances, whispered secrets, and a love that may not have been what it seemed? The world fell in love with them. A modern fairy tale of Hollywood glamour meeting British royalty. But behind the smiles, the public gestures, and the staged appearances, cracks were already forming. And it's these cracks, invisible to most, that would eventually widen into a chasm capable of swallowing everything Harry thought he knew about love, loyalty, and family. Imagine the scene: a sprawling palace garden, sunlight bouncing off the manicured hedges, photographers capturing every candid laugh. Meghan and Harry appear perfect, the couple that the media can't stop obsessing over. They are everywhere: cover stories, interviews, charity galas, living lives that seem enviable, almost untouchable. But fairy tales, as we know, rarely survive a close inspection. For Harry, the public facade masked a growing discomfort, a sense that something beneath the glamour was quietly shifting. For Meghan, the polished image hid secrets that no one could have guessed, not even the prince she married. From the beginning, Meghan's entrance into the royal family was met with awe, curiosity, and intense scrutiny. She was a divorcee, an actress, an American, stepping into centuries of tradition and protocol. She had charisma, intelligence, and beauty, but she also carried ambition, a desire not just to be accepted, but to transform the narrative of what a modern duchess could be. That ambition, initially celebrated, would eventually collide with expectations, both public and private, creating tension that few could anticipate. And Harry, oh Harry, he was in love. He left behind the shadow of his mother's tragic story, determined to forge a new path, one where love could conquer tradition, expectations, and the harsh scrutiny of a global audience. He believed in Meghan fully, perhaps blindly, perhaps even recklessly. The image of their devotion, carefully staged in public appearances and celebrated in social media campaigns, suggested unity, partnership, and an unshakable bond. Yet, the very intensity of that devotion made it vulnerable to exposure, and vulnerability, in their world, is dangerous. The cracks began subtly. Small contradictions, minor tensions that seemed inconsequential at the time. A hushed conversation overheard by staff. A cancellation of a seemingly insignificant engagement. A pattern of secrecy that, when examined later, appeared as deliberate concealment. The public didn't notice. The media didn't see beyond the red carpet smiles. But inside, the couple's private world was shifting, and the foundation of trust began to show signs of strain. It's easy to romanticize the fairy tale, the prince, the actress, the global media fascination, the charitable initiatives, and the images of happiness and devotion. But the reality, as investigative reporting would later reveal, was far more complex. There were layers of relationships, financial interactions, and hidden communications that painted a different picture, one of intrigue, careful calculation, and perhaps deception. Tom Bower's investigation exposes these layers with a precision that shocks, revealing connections that challenge the public perception of Meghan as merely a modern royal heroine. Even before the sugar baby allegations, there were whispers, rumors that circulated quietly, dismissed by most as tabloid exaggeration. Yet, when you examine the timeline, the evidence, and the testimonies from insiders, a pattern emerges. It suggests a life carefully managed, with hidden interactions and private choices that diverged sharply from the public narrative. And as Bower details in his latest work, some of these choices intersected with individuals of immense wealth and influence, introducing dynamics that were never visible to the public eye. Harry, meanwhile, was facing his own battle, protecting his wife in public while grappling with private questions of trust, balancing the weight of the monarchy with personal emotions, navigating media storms that distorted reality at every turn. Every smile in front of the cameras was a mask, every public gesture a carefully constructed signal. And yet, behind closed doors, the emotional strain was growing. Arguments that seemed trivial externally were, in fact, symptomatic of deeper conflicts that would later culminate in the discussions about divorce and separation. This chapter of their life is crucial because it lays the groundwork for understanding the scale of the revelations to come. The public sees only moments, weddings, tours, interviews, but misses the private calculus, the strategic decisions, and the tensions simmering beneath the surface. It is in these unseen moments that the seeds of scandal are sown. By examining the fairy tale's unraveling, we can begin to understand why a billionaire connection and alleged sugar baby allegations are more than just shocking. They are the logical culmination of a story that started with cracks hidden in plain sight. But what makes this story truly gripping is the contrast between perception and reality. Publicly, Meghan and Harry were perfect. Privately, tension, secrecy, and fear were taking hold. It is this dissonance, the gap between what is seen and what is true, that makes the unfolding revelations so devastating. Because when the truth finally breaks through the facade, the emotional impact is amplified exponentially. Fans feel betrayed. Harry feels deceived. Meghan is exposed. And the world, eager for scandal, waits with bated breath. As we explore this unraveling, consider this. How do you maintain love when every action is scrutinized? How do you trust someone when history, wealth, and secrecy intervene? And how do you protect yourself when the media is ready to amplify every misstep, every hidden meeting, every unexplained gift? These are questions that Harry and Meghan face daily, and answers were never easy. They were navigating not just a marriage, but a global stage where the stakes are higher than most can imagine. The fairy tale began with promise and admiration, but even the most carefully crafted narratives are vulnerable. The palace's polished corridors, the red carpets, the smiling faces, all served as masks. And behind those masks, the truth waited, patient, hidden, and explosive. It was a truth that would not remain contained, a truth that Bauer's investigation brings into the harsh light of public scrutiny. By tracing the early tensions, the subtle contradictions, and the private struggles of Meghan and Harry, we see how the foundation for scandal was laid. It wasn't abrupt or accidental. It was a slow, almost imperceptible unraveling of trust, secrecy, and personal choice. And when the exposure came, when allegations of a sugar baby relationship with Ty Warner surfaced, it did not arrive in isolation. It was the climax of years of hidden dynamics, private tensions, and unresolved conflicts. And so, as the fairy tale unravels, we begin to understand that what seems shocking on the surface is actually part of a broader, intricate narrative. The love story, the public adoration, the charitable endeavors, they are threads in a much larger tapestry, one woven with ambition, secrecy, and influence. Each revelation, each alleged secret, adds a layer of complexity, challenging the way we perceive Meghan, Harry, and the life they built together. But what came next, what Harry discovered about Meghan's hidden connections, her dealings with Ty Warner, and the private moments that no one else could see, would change everything. And as the world would soon learn, the fairy tale, as perfect as it seemed, was only the beginning of a story filled with betrayal, revelation, and shocking consequences. The unraveling had begun, and nobody saw how far it would go. If you thought you knew Meghan Markle, think again. Tom Bauer, the investigative author known for uncovering secrets that make the world gasp, has dropped a bombshell that threatens to rewrite everything we thought we knew about the Duchess. This isn't a rumor passed around gossip columns. This is meticulously documented, cross-referenced reporting, insider testimonies, and an examination of patterns that point to an explosive narrative. Meghan Markle, the global Duchess, allegedly maintained a relationship with Ty Warner, billionaire and creator of the Beanie Babies empire, in a way that some are calling sugar baby meets high society intrigue. And if that revelation wasn't enough, Bauer's research hints that Prince Harry may have already been walking into discussions of divorce before the public even caught a whiff of scandal. Imagine it, a quiet mansion in Los Angeles, far from royal cameras, where whispers of wealth, power, and secrecy intertwine. Ty Warner, a man whose fortune is measured in billions, whose lifestyle is secretive and exclusive, allegedly connected with Meghan in ways that were carefully hidden from the public eye. Gifts, meetings, private communications, all suggesting a layer of Meghan's life that existed parallel to her public persona as the devoted wife of a prince. And it is these very hidden layers that Bauer painstakingly exposes. Bauer's revelations are not just about the existence of these private encounters. They reveal patterns, behaviors, and strategic decisions that paint Meghan in a new, highly controversial light. The investigation suggests a woman adept at navigating both royal life and the world of ultra-wealthy socialites, with skills that are equal parts charm, persuasion, and ambition. This is where the line between personal and public blurs, and where the stakes become far higher than a mere tabloid story. To understand the gravity, one must look at the details. Ty Warner is not just any billionaire. He is a figure whose influence has quietly shaped parts of Hollywood and the global luxury market. According to Bauer, the alleged relationship involved financial exchanges, private gifts, and high-profile encounters that were never meant for public eyes. These are not casual friendships. They suggest a deliberate interaction that, if true, places Meghan at the center of a web of secrecy and influence that challenges her carefully curated image as a royal icon. Yet, the story is as much about timing as it is about content. These revelations coincide with a period when Harry's personal and public life is under immense strain. Discussions of divorce, the emotional toll of media scrutiny, and internal palace dynamics create a volatile backdrop. Bauer's research suggests that this was not just a personal secret. It is one that had the potential to affect everything Harry had built, from his family life to his public initiatives, and even the way he was perceived as a prince navigating a modern monarchy. The level of detail in Bauer's exposé is staggering. He draws from insider accounts, legal documents, and a network of sources that span both sides of the Atlantic. Each piece adds depth, context, and credibility, making it increasingly difficult to dismiss the allegations as mere sensationalism. There is a pattern here, a carefully constructed life that, while glamorous on the surface, hides complexities and connections that few outside this inner circle could have imagined. What makes Bauer's revelations particularly shocking is the juxtaposition. Publicly, Meghan is the devoted wife, mother, and modern royal, advocating for causes, appearing in interviews, and projecting an image of composure and grace. Privately, according to Bauer, there was a world of meetings, gifts, and interactions that could not coexist comfortably with that public persona. This duality creates tension not only for Meghan but for Harry, who had placed trust in a life together that, for him, seemed authentic. The emotional fallout is immense because it is not just about public perception. It is about personal betrayal, the erosion of trust, and the impact on a family's future. The sugar baby allegations themselves are specific, detailed, and tied to tangible events and interactions. Bauer outlines gifts exchanged, the timing of private encounters, and patterns that suggest an intentional relationship. But beyond the sensationalism lies a more profound question. What motivates a person to manage multiple layers of life in secret? And more importantly, what does it do to a marriage when such layers are inevitably exposed? Harry's position is precarious. As a prince, he is constantly under surveillance, expected to uphold tradition and decorum while managing personal crises. The allegations revealed by Bauer place him in a position where every decision, every emotion, every reaction is scrutinized. He is forced to navigate personal betrayal while maintaining a public image of stoicism and composure, a challenge few can truly comprehend. The strain is psychological, emotional, and deeply personal because trust, once broken, reverberates through every aspect of life. Bauer also touches on the broader implications. The royal family, the media, and even Meghan's supporters are all participants in a narrative that has been carefully shaped and now threatens to explode. Allies, detractors, and observers alike are left to process revelations that may redefine relationships, reputations, and roles within the monarchy. In essence, Bauer's work doesn't just expose Meghan. It exposes the delicate ecosystem of power, influence, and expectations surrounding the Sussexes. And yet, amidst the revelations, contradictions emerge. Public appearances, interviews, and social media statements often contradict the behaviors and interactions Bauer uncovers. These contradictions amplify the intrigue and create layers of complexity that the audience cannot ignore. How can one reconcile the public narrative with the hidden truth? How can trust survive when the reality is so starkly different from perception? These are the questions that define the unfolding drama. The emotional stakes continue to escalate as Bauer details the impact on Harry. The alleged revelations are not abstract. They influence personal decisions, conversations behind closed doors, and, ultimately, the consideration of divorce. The timing and manner of these revelations create a high-stakes scenario. Harry is confronted not just with public scandal, but with the very real erosion of personal trust and intimacy. The emotional weight is compounded by the fact that these revelations come from a respected investigative author, lending credibility and gravitas that mere rumor could never achieve. For Meghan, the situation is equally intense. Exposure, whether perceived or real, threatens her reputation, public image, and personal legacy. Every action, every defense, every denial, or lack thereof, is analyzed, critiqued, and amplified. The dual pressures of public perception and private accountability create a storm that few could withstand. It is a test of resilience, strategy, and emotional control, and Bauer's investigation places her squarely at the center of that storm. This chapter of the story is crucial because it sets the stage for the emotional, legal, and public fallout that will follow. It is the spark that ignites the narrative, the revelation that destabilizes the equilibrium of a marriage, and the expose that forces both the public and Harry to confront realities that had previously been hidden. The details are shocking, but the implications are even more profound because they touch on trust, loyalty, and the very foundations of a high-profile relationship. And just when it seems the story cannot get any more intense, Bauer drops another bomb. Evidence suggesting that Harry was already taking steps that could lead to divorce discussions even before the public was aware of the allegations. Meetings with legal advisors, private consultations, and strategic planning are hinted at, painting a picture of a prince forced into action by circumstances beyond his control. The stakes are no longer hypothetical. They are immediate, personal, and unavoidable. As we move deeper into this narrative, keep in mind the emotional roller coaster these revelations trigger. Public admiration turns into scrutiny. Love becomes suspicion. Loyalty becomes conditional. Every choice, every hidden interaction, every financial or personal detail revealed by Bauer adds a new layer of tension and complexity. The story is far from over. In fact, it is only gaining momentum. And so, as we transition from the shocking revelations to the next chapter, one thing is certain. The fairy tale is fractured, trust is strained, and every secret that comes to light has consequences far beyond what anyone imagined. The world is watching, the media is hungry, and Harry and Meghan are at the center of a storm that could define the next chapter of their lives in ways no one could have predicted. But what Bauer uncovered next, what seemed almost unbelievable at first glance, would push this story from scandal into a territory that could change everything for both Meghan and Harry, and no one saw it coming. The moment the world heard the words "sugar baby," it was like a thunderclap. Suddenly, the polished image of Meghan Markle, the Duchess, the wife of a prince, the modern icon of grace and influence, was cast in a completely different light. Tom Bauer's investigation didn't merely hint at an alleged connection between Meghan and Ty Warner. It painted a portrait that made even the most seasoned royal watchers pause. According to insider sources, what many assumed were casual friendships or philanthropic connections may have been something far more calculated, far more intimate, and far more financially entangled than anyone expected. Imagine for a moment the kind of life Bauer describes. Private jets, sprawling estates, discreet luxury gifts, and a man who commands billions. A man whose influence stretches across Hollywood, fashion, and elite circles. Ty Warner is not simply wealthy. He is strategic, private, and notorious for carefully managing both his public image and his private dealings. In this world, gifts are never just gifts, meetings are never just meetings, and appearances can be meticulously orchestrated. And according to Bauer, Meghan Markle was navigating these waters with a sophistication that few outside her inner circle could recognize. The sugar baby allegations are detailed and precise. Bauer outlines timelines of meetings, exchanges of expensive gifts, and private encounters that suggest a deliberate pattern. These were not one-off interactions. They were consistent, deliberate, and carefully concealed from public scrutiny. From luxury accommodations to trips coordinated far from the eyes of the media, the investigation uncovers layers of behavior that, when pieced together, suggest a carefully managed private life. The implication is staggering, a life that diverged sharply from the one displayed in glossy magazines, royal tours, and carefully curated social media posts. But it isn't just about money or gifts. It's about control, influence, and strategy. The sources interviewed by Bauer describe Meghan as someone aware of the leverage inherent in her relationships, adept at negotiating situations that enhanced both her lifestyle and her status. There's a delicate balance here. On one hand, public devotion to Prince Harry. On the other, private interactions that could fundamentally undermine that devotion if revealed. The contrast between public persona and private maneuvering is what makes these allegations so explosive. For Harry, discovering these details, even in fragments, is devastating. Imagine learning that your partner, someone you trusted implicitly, may have maintained an intricate, secretive relationship with a billionaire. The emotional impact is impossible to overstate. Trust, once broken, reverberates through every aspect of a relationship. Every shared memory, every private moment, is suddenly reinterpreted through the lens of doubt. For a prince who has already lived a life under extreme scrutiny, the stakes are profoundly personal, emotional, and public all at once. What makes these revelations even more shocking is the meticulous nature of Bauer's evidence. He doesn't rely on speculation. He presents documents, testimonies, and timelines that suggest deliberate concealment. Gifts, meetings, and exchanges aren't mentioned casually. They are corroborated with multiple sources, creating a narrative that is difficult to dismiss. And the timing of these interactions, often overlapping with Harry's most vulnerable moments, adds a layer of tension that is almost cinematic in its intensity. The human aspect of this story is just as compelling. Sources describe Meghan as a master of social nuance, navigating both royal expectation and elite wealth with precision. Every interaction, every gesture, every calculated decision becomes a piece of a puzzle that, when assembled, reveals a narrative few outside the inner circle could imagine. There's a subtle artistry to it, a combination of charm, intelligence, and opportunism that makes the allegations credible and even more unsettling. But there's also a psychological dimension here. Maintaining a public persona while engaging in secretive, potentially compromising behavior requires a level of emotional compartmentalization few can sustain. Bauer's investigation highlights the tension between Meghan's public duties and her private strategies, illustrating the strain of living a life under constant surveillance while simultaneously orchestrating private affairs. For Harry, the discovery of these hidden dynamics is more than betrayal. It's a profound emotional shock, one that forces him to question every assumption he made about his marriage. In addition to gifts and private meetings, the investigation uncovers subtle patterns of communication. Encrypted messages, discreet visits, and carefully timed interactions suggest planning and intention. These are not casual coincidences. They indicate awareness of scrutiny and a deliberate effort to maintain secrecy. The sophistication of these actions adds credibility to Bauer's narrative, suggesting that the alleged sugar baby connection was a carefully managed facet of Meghan's life, existing alongside her very public identity as a royal wife and mother. Audience engagement is unavoidable here. One must ask, if you discovered your partner had a hidden life so meticulously orchestrated, how would you react? Could trust survive such revelations? And in a world where every public appearance is dissected by millions, how do you manage the collapse of both private trust and public image simultaneously? These are the questions that define the emotional core of this story. The implications extend beyond personal betrayal. There are questions of influence, perception, and power. A relationship with a billionaire introduces a dynamic that intersects with public perception, royal protocol, and personal integrity. How does a private connection of this magnitude affect the narrative of a marriage, particularly one so scrutinized by the media and public? How does it influence decisions, priorities, and even the course of legal proceedings if divorce becomes inevitable? For Meghan, the stakes are equally high. Exposure threatens her reputation, her legacy, and her carefully cultivated public image. Every denial, statement, or lack of comment is scrutinized, dissected, and amplified. The media is relentless, and the public, having invested emotionally in the fairy tale, reacts with intensity. The juxtaposition of glamour and alleged private maneuvering creates a tension that captivates, fascinates, and horrifies in equal measure. Yet, contradictions abound, making the narrative even more compelling. Public appearances suggest devotion, stability, and loyalty. Private interactions, according to Bauer, suggest secrecy, planning, and financial entanglement. This duality, the contrast between perception and reality, is what keeps the audience riveted. Every revealed detail challenges assumptions, reshapes narratives, and deepens the emotional impact. And then there is the timing. Bauer's evidence suggests that these interactions were not random. They coincided with critical moments in Harry's life: charity work, royal obligations, and moments of personal vulnerability. The implication is clear. The timing was not accidental, and the effects on trust, emotion, and marital stability were profound. The narrative becomes a high-stakes drama, with consequences that extend far beyond private betrayal into the realm of public scandal. The chapter closes with the psychological and emotional toll on Harry. Betrayal, uncertainty, and fear dominate his inner world. Trust, the foundation of any marriage, has been fractured. Every memory, every intimate moment, is reevaluated in the context of these revelations. The public may see only headlines, but the personal consequences are intense, complex, and deeply human. And just when it seems the story has reached its emotional peak, a new element emerges: messages, gifts, and meetings that hint at a depth of secrecy even Bauer barely begins to unravel. What was Meghan truly planning? How far did the influence of Ty Warner extend? And how would Harry respond once he fully understood the scale of what had been hidden from him? But what came next? The revelations that would make even the most loyal royal supporters question everything was beyond comprehension, and no one saw it coming. Imagine walking into a room and seeing the person you love most in the world, realizing that the life you believed you shared may have been built on illusions. This is the reality that Prince Harry faced as he began to piece together the layers of secrecy surrounding Meghan Markle. The sugar baby allegations, the alleged billionaire connection, the carefully hidden gifts and private meetings. It all came crashing down on him in a wave of disbelief, anger, and heartbreak. The emotional fallout was immediate, profound, and deeply personal. For a man whose entire life had been lived under scrutiny, the pain was amplified, magnified by the eyes of the world that would never let him grieve privately. It starts with trust, the fragile glue of any relationship. Harry, having chosen Meghan with complete conviction, suddenly finds that trust fractured. Every phone call, every private conversation, every intimate moment now carries a shadow of doubt. He wonders, was this real? Was our love authentic? Or was it a carefully orchestrated narrative designed to hide intentions he could never anticipate? The emotional weight is staggering. Trust, once broken, reshapes perception, distorts memory, and forces a reconsideration of everything once held sacred. The private fallout doesn't happen overnight. It builds slowly, quietly, like a storm forming on the horizon. Harry begins noticing inconsistencies. Messages appear out of context. Stories about private meetings with Ty Warner begin surfacing in Bauer's investigation, corroborated by multiple sources. Friends notice a subtle change in him, a tension in his movements, a hesitation in his smiles. His sleep becomes restless, filled with dreams that blur reality and fear, where questions about loyalty, love, and honesty are relentless. The pressure is unbearable, not just because of what has been revealed, but because of what it might mean for the life he thought he had. Emotionally, the impact is multifaceted. There is betrayal, the raw, cutting kind that feels as if it seeps into your very bones. There is anger, sometimes explosive, sometimes silent, simmering beneath a controlled exterior. There is sorrow, a deep grief for the relationship he once trusted implicitly. And there is fear, the gnawing anxiety of uncertainty, amplified by the knowledge that the world is watching, judging, and waiting for him to react. Every interaction with Meghan becomes charged. A casual comment, a glance, a gesture, each is scrutinized, analyzed, and interpreted in light of the new revelations. The intimacy that once defined their bond now carries tension. Conversations that should have been simple are layered with suspicion and unspoken questions. The fallout is not limited to their private lives. It ripples outward, affecting staff, advisors, and even family members who must navigate the treacherous waters of palace protocol while dealing with personal loyalties and the emerging scandal. The psychological toll is immense. Harry is forced to confront not just betrayal, but the intersection of public and private life. As a prince, His emotional response cannot be contained to private spaces. The world watches every expression, every social media post, every public appearance. One misstep, one visible crack in composure, could become headline news, fodder for commentators, and ammunition for critics. The scrutiny is relentless, a constant companion in a life where privacy is almost non-existent. And yet, amidst the emotional chaos, Harry must act. The fallout demands decisions. Meetings with legal advisors begin, discussions about financial arrangements are initiated, and the possibility of separation or divorce emerges not as an abstract concept, but as a real, imminent possibility. The stakes are astronomical: personal, emotional, financial, and reputational. Every choice carries consequences not just for Harry and Meghan, but for their children, their extended family, and the institution of the monarchy itself. Bauer's investigation also highlights the social dimensions of the fallout. Friends and confidants, caught between loyalty and curiosity, begin to whisper, speculate, and share what they know. Some attempt to provide counsel, others offer warnings. For Harry, navigating this landscape is perilous. Trust is in short supply, and each interaction is tinged with the potential for further betrayal or misinterpretation. The social environment becomes a labyrinth of caution, suspicion, and emotional vigilance. The personal toll extends into public spaces as well. Harry's appearances, once confident and charismatic, now carry undercurrents of tension. Interviews, speeches, and charity engagements are performed with meticulous care, masking the turbulence beneath. Staff and advisors notice subtle changes: increased irritability, moments of withdrawal, heightened sensitivity to criticism. It is a delicate balancing act, maintaining the image of composure while managing a private storm of emotional upheaval. This fallout also underscores the complexity of public perception. For Harry, it is not enough to process his emotions in private. Every reaction, every statement, every defensive gesture becomes part of a global narrative. Public sympathy, media speculation, and social media commentary add layers of pressure that amplify the emotional weight. The very mechanisms of public life, news cycles, viral posts, commentary, become instruments of personal torment, forcing him to manage both inner turmoil and external narratives simultaneously. And then there is the intersection with family dynamics. The palace, already accustomed to intrigue, now becomes a stage for personal and institutional conflict. Harry's parents, extended relatives, and close advisors are all pulled into the emotional and strategic fallout. Choices must be made regarding disclosure, loyalty, and engagement with both media and legal processes. The private crisis becomes inseparable from institutional considerations, adding complexity, pressure, and urgency to every decision. Despite the turbulence, there are moments of introspection where Harry contemplates what loyalty, love, and partnership truly mean. He reflects on past choices, his commitment to family, and the future of his children. These internal deliberations are deeply human, revealing a man caught between duty and desire, love and betrayal, public perception and private pain. The tension is almost unbearable and yet unavoidable. Audience engagement is essential here. If you were in Harry's position, facing betrayal at such a personal and public scale, what would you do? Could trust ever be rebuilt? Could the public's eye ever be escaped, even for a moment of private reflection? These questions linger, heightening emotional resonance and drawing viewers deeper into the narrative. And just as Harry begins to grapple with these revelations, a new twist emerges. Evidence uncovered by Bauer suggests that Meghan's alleged secret life with Ty Warner may have overlapped with critical moments in their marriage, moments where Harry believed he was building a future grounded in honesty and devotion. The timing intensifies the emotional fallout, adding layers of anger, sorrow, and disbelief. Every memory, every shared experience, is now reframed, interpreted through the lens of potential deception. The fallout is not just emotional, it begins to manifest in action. Meetings with legal counsel are scheduled, private conversations are revisited, and the groundwork for potential separation or divorce begins in earnest. Every decision is made under duress, every step weighed against public scrutiny, private betrayal, and the potential consequences for a global audience. The stakes are immense, and the consequences are irreversible. And as the chapter closes, Harry is left standing at a crossroads. His private world is fractured, his trust compromised, and the emotional weight of betrayal bears down on him with relentless force. Every moment is a balancing act, every thought a negotiation between love, duty, and survival. And just when he begins to anticipate what comes next, a revelation looms on the horizon, one that could escalate the crisis beyond anything imagined, a revelation that will challenge not just the marriage, but the very core of Harry's understanding of the life he thought he had. But what Meghan did next, in response to Harry's growing realization, would shock the world and set in motion a chain of events that no one could have predicted. The moment a whisper becomes a rumor, and a rumor becomes a headline, the life of a public figure changes forever. For Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, that moment came quietly at first, hidden beneath layers of carefully managed appearances. But soon, the whispers could no longer be contained. Discussions about divorce, once inconceivable to the public, began circulating with increasing intensity, fueled by insider leaks, investigative reporting, and the relentless scrutiny of social media. What had once seemed like a private challenge now erupted into a global conversation, forcing Harry and Meghan to confront the reality that their marriage, as the world knew it, was under threat. The rumors didn't start with a single source. They spread like wildfire, each iteration adding new layers of speculation. Insiders hinted at private legal consultations, subtle changes in body language during public engagements, and fleeting comments overheard by staff. Social media amplified every minor observation. A withdrawn look here, a tense exchange there, a canceled engagement whispered about in elite circles. Suddenly, nothing was off limits, and everything became evidence of an unraveling marriage. It's crucial to understand the emotional impact of this moment on Harry. As a prince, every decision, every reaction, every visible emotion is magnified exponentially. What might have been a private moment of doubt or grief becomes a public spectacle, dissected in tabloids, news cycles, and viral commentary. Harry's sense of personal space and autonomy was being eroded, replaced by an ever-present awareness that the world was watching, waiting for him to falter. The rumors weren't just gossip. They were a weapon, shaping perception and amplifying emotional strain. Meanwhile, Meghan faced an equally intense storm. As the alleged sugar baby revelations and billionaire connections became fodder for public discussion, her reputation hung in the balance. Every statement she issued, or refrained from issuing, was analyzed for tone, content, and intent. Supporters rallied, critics amplified the narrative, and the media pounced, creating a feedback loop that left little room for private reflection or genuine resolution. The tension was relentless, emotionally exhausting, and unavoidable. But the rumors weren't only external. They infiltrated the couple's private world. Staff, advisors, and close friends were suddenly caught in a delicate balancing act. Loyalty was tested, confidences were questioned, and the very fabric of trust that underpinned their relationships began to fray. Private conversations were scrutinized for meaning, subtle gestures were interpreted as signs of fracture, and even casual interactions became potential evidence in a story that now had global stakes. As the narrative gained momentum, the timing of events played a critical role. The alleged revelations about Ty Warner and the sugar baby allegations coincided with moments when Harry and Meghan were under significant stress, charitable initiatives, media appearances, and family obligations. This convergence intensified the emotional stakes, forcing Harry to confront betrayal while simultaneously managing public expectations. The dual pressures, personal and public, created a volatile environment, one where every action carried potential consequences. Audience engagement is key here. Imagine learning that your private life is being dissected on a global scale, that your most personal challenges are now public property, and that every emotion you feel is up for debate. How do you navigate trust, love, and decision-making when the world is not only watching but actively shaping the narrative? These are the very questions that Harry faced daily, making the experience uniquely intense, psychologically complex, and emotionally draining. The media's role in amplifying the divorce rumors cannot be overstated. Headlines, leaks, and commentary transformed speculation into a near certainty in the public mind. Every detail, canceled trips, private meetings, discreet legal consultations, was reframed as proof of impending separation. Social media, in particular, became a pressure cooker where fans, critics, and casual observers debated, judged, and projected their interpretations, creating a relentless echo chamber. The couple's private lives became a stage on which millions performed scrutiny and judgment. But beyond public perception, the divorce rumors had tangible consequences. Legal advisors were consulted, financial arrangements began to be reconsidered, and conversations about property, assets, and child custody quietly commenced. Each step was fraught with tension, compounded by the need to maintain public composure. The emotional stakes were intertwined with practical considerations, creating a web of complexity that required careful navigation. The psychological toll on Harry was profound. Trust, already fractured by the alleged revelations of secret connections and hidden interactions, now faced the additional burden of public speculation. Every choice was scrutinized, every hesitation interpreted, and every expression analyzed for meaning. It was a constant negotiation between private grief and public expectation, a delicate balancing act in which the wrong move could have lasting consequences. Meanwhile, Meghan's response to the growing rumors added another layer of complexity. According to sources, she oscillated between defiance, denial, and strategic silence, attempting to manage perception while grappling with her own emotions. The dual pressures of personal exposure and public scrutiny created a tension that was both psychological and social. Every decision, whether to speak or remain silent, to act or withhold, carried weighty consequences that could impact her reputation, her marriage, and her public image. The combination of private betrayal, public speculation, and intense media scrutiny created a perfect storm. Friends, advisors, and even family members were drawn into the orbit of the rumors, each interpretation adding fuel to the fire. Small details became symbolic, private conversations were reframed as evidence, and every gesture was imbued with meaning far beyond its original context. The divorce rumors, once a whisper, had become a powerful force shaping decisions, emotions, and perceptions at every level. And yet, the story was far from complete. The rumors were just the beginning, the precursor to revelations that would shake the very foundation of Harry and Meghan's relationship. What had begun as speculation was on the verge of becoming undeniable reality. The emotional fallout, already severe, was about to intensify further as legal considerations, financial stakes, and public perception converged in a way that could not be ignored. As the chapter closes, the question remains: how do you protect love when the world is actively undermining it? How do you trust when every action is scrutinized and every secret threatens to surface? And most importantly, how do you navigate a marriage under siege when the rumors, whispers, and leaks begin to feel as real as the life you are living? But what came next, the revelation that would transform speculation into unavoidable truth, was something no one could have anticipated, and it would push Harry and Meghan into uncharted territory. The name Ty Warner might ring bells for some as the creator of Beanie Babies, a billionaire who mastered the art of collecting wealth, influence, and secrecy in equal measure. But in the context of Meghan Markle, Ty Warner is suddenly more than just a figure in pop culture history. He is a key piece in a puzzle that raises questions about private relationships, hidden exchanges, and the delicate intersection of power, money, and personal choice. According to Tom Bower's expose, Meghan's alleged connections with Warner were not fleeting or incidental. They suggest a carefully navigated interaction, a private world where luxury, discretion, and influence were intertwined in ways most could never imagine. Consider the magnitude of Warner's influence. He is a man whose fortune runs into billions, whose lifestyle is meticulously curated, and whose associations span Hollywood, fashion, and elite social circles. To be in his orbit is to gain access to a world of unparalleled resources, connections, and discretion. Allegedly, Meghan was not just a casual acquaintance. She was someone who navigated this world with intelligence, charm, and strategic awareness. Every meeting, every gift, every interaction carried significance, and the implications of these connections are profound. Bauer's investigation lays out a pattern of interactions between Meghan and Warner that appear deliberate and repeated. High-profile dinners, private jets, luxury gifts, and discreet meetings are all part of the narrative. This isn't the casual engagement of two acquaintances. It's a structured, calculated interaction that raises questions about the dynamics at play. Gifts are rarely just gifts in the billionaire's world. Meetings are rarely just meetings. Everything carries layers of intention, influence, and leverage. For Harry, these revelations are devastating on multiple levels. There is the personal impact, the shock of discovering that a partner may have cultivated relationships in secret at the intersection of wealth and discretion. But there is also the public and political dimension. As a prince, every association, every revelation, and every perceived conflict of interest can have implications far beyond personal emotions. The alleged connection with Warner threatens not only Harry's trust in Meghan, but also the public perception of their marriage, raising questions about priorities, loyalty, and transparency. The emotional tension is palpable. For Meghan, the alleged interactions with Warner may have been managed with careful discretion, but the consequences of exposure are severe. Her image as a devoted wife, mother, and modern royal is suddenly juxtaposed against allegations of secretive and potentially compromising relationships. Public perception is merciless. Scrutiny is unrelenting. Every action, statement, or denial becomes part of a narrative that can reshape legacy, reputation, and influence. Bauer's exposé doesn't just detail interactions, it contextualizes them within a broader network of influence. Warner is a figure whose decisions and relationships ripple through Hollywood and elite social circles. To be connected to him, even indirectly, is to be part of a world where privacy is rare and intentions are complex. Meghan's alleged ability to navigate this world, maintain discretion, and manage appearances speaks to a level of sophistication, awareness, and strategic acumen that few outsiders could comprehend. The story also exposes contradictions between public appearances and private interactions. While Meghan was seen publicly as fully devoted to Harry, privately, Bauer's sources describe meetings, gifts, and communications that suggest a parallel narrative. This duality, between image and reality, perception and truth, is a recurring theme in the unfolding drama. It creates tension, raises questions, and deepens the intrigue, leaving audiences wondering, how much of what we see is real and how much is carefully orchestrated? Audience engagement is unavoidable here. Imagine discovering that your partner had cultivated secretive relationships with a billionaire while you believed your life together was built on transparency and trust. What would you do? Could you forgive, navigate, or understand? These questions drive the emotional core of the story, inviting viewers to not only witness but empathize, speculate, and engage with the unfolding narrative. The timing of these interactions adds further complexity. Sources suggest that some meetings and exchanges coincided with critical periods in Harry and Meghan's public life. Major tours, charity engagements, and moments where personal and professional pressures intersected. The coincidence, or design, of timing magnifies the emotional impact, reinforcing the narrative of secrecy and careful management. It raises questions about intent, awareness, and the balance between private desires and public responsibility. Financial and social influence are deeply entwined in this narrative. Gifts and meetings with a billionaire like Warner are never purely social. They carry implications for perception, leverage, and access. Bauer details these interactions with precision, emphasizing that in the world of extreme wealth and influence, nothing is casual and everything has consequences. For Harry, understanding this dynamic is crucial, as it reshapes the narrative of trust, loyalty, and partnership that underpins any marriage. The chapter also highlights the psychological complexity of Meghan's position. Balancing public life, royal duties, media scrutiny, and alleged private relationships requires an extraordinary level of emotional management. Sources suggest that Meghan's ability to navigate these intersecting worlds was deliberate, sophisticated, and, at times, contentious. For Harry, the realization of this hidden complexity is emotionally destabilizing, as it challenges his perception of honesty, commitment, and intimacy. Media amplification further intensifies the impact. As allegations regarding Warner's involvement surfaced, every detail became fodder for public debate, speculation, and analysis. Headlines, social media commentary, and news cycles transformed personal and private interactions into global narratives. For Harry and Meghan, the exposure is not simply emotional. It is political, strategic, and highly visible. The fallout is inevitable, and the stakes are higher than ever. And yet, amidst the scrutiny, there is an underlying question. How much of this narrative reflects intention versus perception? Were these interactions knowingly compromising, or were they carefully managed social connections misinterpreted by outside observers? Bauer's investigation pushes the boundaries of what is known, presenting evidence, testimony, and context, but also leaving room for interpretation. This ambiguity fuels both intrigue and emotional tension, keeping audiences engaged and invested. As the chapter concludes, the implications of the alleged Ty-Warner connection are clear. It's not merely a scandal. It's a turning point in the story, reshaping Harry's emotional landscape, Meghan's public image, and the narrative surrounding their marriage. Trust is fractured, perception is challenged, and the stakes, both personal and public, have never been higher. But what Harry discovered next, in the wake of these revelations, would push him to the brink and set the stage for decisions that could alter the course of his life forever. The question of loyalty, love, and legacy had never been more urgent, and the consequences of what came next would ripple far beyond the couple, touching family, media, and the world itself. The moment the alleged sugar baby revelations and Ty-Warner connections leaked, the world erupted. Social media exploded with speculation, news outlets scrambled to cover every angle, and gossip columns spun theories that blurred fact and interpretation. The media, which had once celebrated Meghan and Harry as the modern fairy tale couple, suddenly pivoted to a narrative of betrayal, secrecy, and scandal. Headlines screamed, tweets trended, and opinion pieces debated whether the Duchess's private life could coexist with her public image. Within hours, the couple's personal crisis became a global spectacle.